Hi, welcome back, folks. First, I want to thank David D. For his recurring, ongoing, really long, faithful contributions. David, I hope your work is benefiting, and I'm hoping that's what that means, precisely, it's benefiting from the conversations we're holding here. And Daniel S., I think that's the first time donation for you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Shawn, my easy to understand, hard to do thing. Shawn is asking this question, and I wonder what you've found to be the top 5 or 10 most challenging things to articulate to your students. What are the most common problematical obstacles you've found consistent with all your students? What are the most challenging aspects of sharing this method with your students? So I take these to be all sort of in one category. If students aren't getting something, I consider it to be partly my problem with articulation. Some of my problem with articulation is that some of what I'm teaching hasn't been fully articulated to me as certain other methods may have been. And so I have words for those, but maybe not words for this. So some of that is me trying to evolve a communication skill for the points we're making, the out of the fog stuff and all that. But this is I've managed to come up with something closer to, I don't know, 15 maybe points. And I'm going to try to do them in 3 segments. I think this is going to be exhausting if I do them all at once. And I'm going to try to do this as potentially 3 videos. So I'm going to get to the end of 5 and I'm going to end the video. And you're going to see me wearing the same things. And this is going to be a series, okay? I'm giving something a try. Hoping to do each of them under 30 minutes. So let's see how this goes, Shawn. Thank you for the question. So here we are. I wonder what you found to be the top 5 or 10 most challenging things to articulate to your students. What are the most common problematic obstacles you've found consistent with all your students? All these things are difficult for all students, so I'm just going to talk about them and hope to elucidate on them for your benefit to the extent that you're trying to understand what I'm doing. We've talked about all these things before. I said that already. And what's happening now is I'm going to give you an angle on it based on what Shawn's question is. So it'll be the same as much of what you've heard. Maybe this will give you a new angle on some of it or cause you to rethink it. I know that a lot of times going back to the older videos isn't something you all want to do. And I have also found that freshening up the question may clarify it. So consider that's what these things are. And the final part of that was what are the most challenging aspects of sharing this method. So I think that last thing I said to you is what that is. The most challenging thing is I haven't been necessarily given words for all the parts that I'm trying to share with you. So let's just go to the first. Now the first one is just pure Monet and this thing called the naive eye. There's no question I found that to be a consistent point that people can't get to. Everybody seems to believe you have to understand anatomy to see well. And if you understand that seeing is and articulating on canvas is a function of marks, values, color, and all these things, but in the relational sense, in the sense of how they relate to each other. And if you can manage to stay on board with that, you wind up with the look of nature, you wind up with the figure and all those things. But the discipline I'm trying to get people to maintain is the discipline of not thinking, here's the next point, understanding the object or space as potentially helpful. So you don't get good depth in the space by understanding space. We can't paint space. We can just paint left to right, and that's going to be a point in a second. But we don't get that. We get darker, lighter. We get what values do when they meet. We get chroma differences, intensity differences in colors. We get gradations of color, gradations of form, some of which produce the idea of roundness, and so on. But these ideas, and by the way, contrast plus edge, this idea of light effects and all those things. But if you would follow my modality and just blur your eye down and paint those first 4 or 5 or 6 power effects. So blur down so you can only see 3 or 4 or 5 effects, and draw the heck out of them and their relationship to each other. You'll see the canvas without filling the canvas up. You'll see the canvas go 3D. You'll see it become projective. And that's the model that I have a difficult time communicating to students. Everybody thinks they have to understand. Oh, I think I see what that is doing, meaning how the chair works. But yeah, so that's one. That's probably number one. And but it is at the heart of Impressionism. Monet being that heart, shall we say? So the second part, seeing flat, not 3D. That's the picture plane mentality. So Joseph de Camp said, he said, you look at the picture plane, not in and look at it nature. You're looking just at the picture plane. So if you look straight ahead of you and you can, so much of what we say requires imagination to do. It requires a leap of faith too. But if you see naively just colors and values and how they display across a picture plane, you're going to be in a place that's going to improve your work very quickly. So now I'm sure that most of you already have heard this, and it's a question, part of what I'm talking about now is a question of consistency in doing it. You do it consistently, you get consistently good results. So, but that's a really huge thing. That's one of the reasons that Anson Cross talks when in his books on like drawing and painting, self-taught, the books he is creating for these normal schools in Boston, to try to get students to see perspective better. He has them trace on a piece of glass first of all, draw the chair, and then put the piece of glass between you and the chair and trace the shapes of the chair and be educated. You see what I'm saying? But it's hard to get people to think that way. Everybody goes in. They go in trying to touch things, this and this, and then they paint this thing over here and this thing over here with their awareness of this and this. Just a 2D plane. I'm telling you, it's a gift. It's a gift that just keeps on giving, okay? So that's number 2. I should have numbered these. So the third one is understanding and using the idea of getting the concept every minute. And that's a big one because the relational world requires us to be conceptual. Now, among other things, being conceptual just understands, do you understand it whether you're talking about color this second or you're talking about size, proportion, other things the next second. Those are concepts in themselves. But within the concept, you're trying to get a color note. You have to get an idea of what this color note is doing in relation to something in the picture. Now you could say, and by the way, I'm not sure I've discussed that, so I'm going to make that its own point here. But if you just think this is a fact, and this other stuff over here, the rest of me is another fact, and if I can just get these various facts right, things will come out okay, but it doesn't work that way, right? So what I have to get people to be aware of is that what we need to do is see this as a color fact, shall we say, and get it right to this color fact, and that's the game we're playing here. So you have to get a concept of what those are doing to each other. And that just requires you to pause a little bit and wait, and don't run back and forth fast. Wait till something dawns on you about their relationship. There'll be a chromal difference. One of them will be more red, yellow, or blue than the other, right? That's conceptual thinking. And that's very similar to when Ang says it, you have to get a concept of the thing. Are you pushing shapes around all day long? He's talking about getting a concept of it could be 1 minute just a bump count, how this bump here ties to that one, how this curve comes around almost like a perfect arc and then bends slightly and becomes a longer arc, so the double arcing thing. But there's any number of ways you can do this, getting a concept. But note, in my way of thinking, there's no concept except the relational, right? So you need something to something. What is the concept of the width? The width is a function of the height. You with me on that? So if we say, what is the width? You can say a fat guy and just do sight size and transfer it over here. But that doesn't require a concept. That requires a ruler. Do you follow? So it's irrelevant to use an expression like getting a concept unless you mean something like how does the height relate to the width? How does the height feel in relation to the width? And so on, okay? So that's one. So people, first of all, don't know to do that or don't know what it is we're doing. And then, of course, the next part of it is they don't do it consistently every single time. Now, what happens if you've done that and you've got an idea of how the width feels to the height, the next one is big. Constantly watch the canvas to see whether you got it. So you have an idea, go up there, and assume you're given a height, you choose a height for a figure you're going to draw. You must, you really need to do that, right? And then you simply go up there and draw it until the width looks right to you, and come back and see and debrief, okay? So consistent debriefing with whatever you corrected in your picture or whatever you attempted to articulate. Come back and see if it shows on the canvas what you meant to say, okay? So that's point 4, the debriefing aspect of it. Now this next one is maintaining the unity. And that has a huge amount. And one of you guys, and thank you very much, almost could remember your name too. One of the comments recently, you talked about the issue, an issue related to what I'm about to say, which is you have to see it on your canvas. So what the unity is, Degas says, get the unity from the beginning and keep it till the end. But the way the picture hangs together, he would use the word harmony. But how a picture hangs together, your job in the first 2 marks you make is make sure they hang together, which means, of course, that you have to go back and be getting a concept of a relationship. And then the first 2 things you put down, if it's just the corner of a shoulder and it relates to the edge of we could say a chair, but let's just say a foot for now. If you have a concept of how they go together and you go and you put them on your canvas till they do it, you'll see that you have the unity of the general impression is in the accuracy of that relationship, right? But the idea of watching the unity means that no matter what you add after that, no matter what else you put in, you're maintaining the unity. That is to say, the relational rightness, okay? Now, but that's not enough, right? So among other things, one of the things we're trying to do in our way of working is we're trying to get a start that has all the data on it. So it's got the colors in there, essential colors, the major colors, and they're put in the right place. The color scheme is visible. Now that's a unity. Color scheme is its own unity, right? So if you can just do that, go out there and get the color spots related, you'll be able to see whether that is the unity of the visual impression. But when you put your color spots out there, look at the canvas and see if it conveys to you what nature conveys. Now, this is where Meldrum would say, look and see if they could just be transitioned in and out of each other. If your group of notes could just be slide over and replace, or nature could slide over, or whatever. And you know what I mean? They would slide in easily. And that's just talking about the color part of it, right? Just that one piece. It's very difficult for me to get people to consistently look for nothing but how things hang together. And part of the problem is we have a methodology that talks about how this relates to that, how this is lighter, that's darker, and that sort of thing. We set up these whole sets of relationships, but most people have a gift of some sort for seeing differences, but for seeing how things hang together. So when Patton, that's another story, right? So when Paxton says, when you have a note in your brush, and you see that it shows up somewhere else, go ahead and put it there. Now that means look for unity, look for relational likenesses, right? So that would help a little bit. Nevertheless, what you do when you're doing just the color gets you a little bit of a window. Do your colors hang together and suggest that this is going to be the same color scheme as that, same value scheme? And the second part of that, the rest of it is, so then you begin to place effects around the canvas. And if you're working like us, you're working from the strong ones coming out of a fog to the minors as much as you can, and certainly keeping them relationally right in their strengths of effect to each other, right? And that's just one other idea. But as soon as you start making any effect, a contrasting edge with a high some area with a high contrast, you have other ones somewhere else in the picture, maybe in the jacket or something, that have a relationship. But what you're doing is, so you're trying to get that relationship, of course you are, right? And we're talking about now just the edge contrast to the edge contrast. Edge plus contrast. So what's happening at that spot, in that relationship. But what you're doing is then, after you put them down, is you're looking at your canvas to see if it's all coming together. Remember, this whole idea of maintaining the unity is the Baron Grow concept, where he says, You want your picture to be in unity all the time. I mean, so if you were to drop dead or disappear, the painting would always be in harmony, no matter what phase it was at. That's the model. And it's very difficult to get people to think abstractly enough, for get students to think abstractly enough to even know that's what they're doing. So they don't look at nature as a unified whole and get to know it. That's a big deal, and we'll talk about that's in the concept getting part. So you look at the whole field and you get to know that field, and you say, all right, I think I'll recognize you when you see it, but the rest of your time, no matter what you put down, you're waiting for this field to show up, this field of unity, this unified field, okay? So there, you see there's several of these coming together. You have to get a unified concept. I mean, a concept of the unity, okay? And now a concept here, in this case, when I say concept, I mean a sense of it, right? It's different. But even that, when I say a sense of it, if I'm talking about what color this is to some other color, say this light is to some light on my shirt, if you pause and look long enough, you might even begin to have words. If you see two colors, you say, oh, this is more the red and that's more the something. I'm not trying to get you to use words, but sometimes they're helpful. But it's the more red, more yellow, more blue model that's always looking for how it can hang together and look like they are in the same integrated, in the same relationship. So they integrate to produce the unity of the field. So that could be, I like the word harmony though. So if you want to think of it as harmony, just think of the colors out there, but all we're trying to do is see all these colors doing something quite nice and they hang together like such and such, just as color spots. What we want them to do is hang together over here in the same way. And that's what I was saying. It's so difficult for people to actually just keep watching your canvas. Is it in harmony? Just what you put down so far. Is it in unity with whatever else is on that canvas, right? So that's a thing. It's difficult to get people to watch their canvas, and of course you won't watch it if you don't know what you're looking for. So you're looking for that sense of unity. All right, I'll end this one at this point here, and thank again David and I better look you up, David and Daniel. And thank you all for your comments and donations. Keep them coming. I'm looking for more conversation out there. Anything else you guys can bring. Also, we've been talking about trying to get another live one, and a couple of you guys have mentioned asking about it. So, and we're way overdue. I did hope to do more frequent ones, but it is what it is. So, all right. So that'll be the first in a series. You're going to see me doing this again. I don't know if it'll be the immediate week after or it'll show up again, but that was part one of the series, Easy to Understand, Hard to Do. All right? All right, wish you well. See you in the next version of this or somewhere. All right? Thank you very much.